Well, furlough until September, universal credit top up to continue for 6 months, minimum wage increased. You must be pretty pleased with the budget.
No, I'm afraid I can't say that to you, Mark. So what we were crying out for was, first of all, a budget that would be a roadmap to recovery, get people back to work. And as well as that, I think we need as a country to address the long-term problems we've had going into the pandemic that have made the impact of the pandemic in the UK so much more severe. Insecurity, low pay, child poverty, all things that have made it so much harder to tackle. Now, on the first of those things, I recognise what you're saying about furlough being extended. But of course, furlough is about protecting people still in jobs, and absolutely right, it is. But we have now in the UK still a huge problem with unemployment, even though furlough is still in place. You know, unemployment hitting 6.5%, as the Chancellor said, that's over 2 million people. And what we've heard so far from the government is not enough to get people back to work. And with that point around universal credit, I've been campaigning, and I make the point, it would have been unthinkable for universal credit to be cut from the beginning of next month. But what that means is now in October, you'll see the end of furlough, where you'd expect unemployment to rise. Unemployment benefits then go to one of their lowest levels for many, many decades in the UK. And at the same time, there's other support being removed. So that's a really difficult problem. And just on those long-term issues, Mark, you know, almost no mention of the NHS, no mention of schools and teachers, despite the massive educational challenge we've got for people to catch up because of the impact of the pandemic. There was nothing on sick pay, even though that's been a real barrier to getting on top of the pandemic and infections. And nothing that gives you that ambition. We're going to stop being a country where we see those queues of people outside food banks. So for me, I think it is papering over the cracks. It's not ambitious enough, and it's just not enough for what the country needs.
Yeah, I know. And I mean, you know, key worker pay rises is a strong case. Clearly, social care, doing more on that is a strong case. Clearly, but how would you have paid for all that stuff? You know, the spending is massive as it is. How would you have paid for all the extra stuff you say he should have done?
Well, so you're right to say if we can't get the government interested in social care after a pandemic like this, you do wonder if we ever will. But look, be clear, all the government spending in the main right now is coming from increased borrowing, and that is the right response in a recession, the scale of which we are experiencing. Because what we have to do is get this country growing again, get people back to work. That expands the tax base, and that's how you get the economy more sustainable, debt levels more sustainable in the longer term. You have to shrink the debt the country has incurred in the pandemic relative to the size of the economy. And that's the crucial point. We can't tackle any of this unless we get people back to work and growth happening and things moving again. And that's the challenge.
But that's what he's trying to do. I mean, just sorry to interrupt, but I'm not clear, where would the burden be falling, you know, in terms of tax, if you wanted to spend more money on social care and pay rises for key workers?
You get it from getting the economy growing, from the proceeds of that growth being able to be spent by the government. And if you look at, you know, what the government has set out, for me, they just haven't learned the lessons of what the government did after the financial crisis when they took over in 2010, where the recovery was stalled, and that made the national finances so much harder to get in control of. You know, going into this pandemic, we've had 4 or 5 years of very low levels of growth by historical standards. We've had terrible growth in productivity, which is what really generates the revenue to invest in public services and make things better. And that's the central challenge. It's getting the economy moving and growing. Yes, at this time, it is the right time to spend money. And that's the crucial thing. If you look, for instance, at not just the universal credit cut, the big increase in council tax for most people across the country because of the local government funding situation, all of this is not just bad for families, it's bad for the economy overall.